Ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoy my video, please click the like button and share the video. It is the only way the YouTube algorithms really notices me. I will be very grateful to you. Scary story published by Scare Fiction. Read for you by Scare Fiction. Chapter 1. The Arrival. Father Gabriel's car rumbled down the winding, desolate road, its headlights cutting through the thick fog that clung to the Massachusetts countryside. Town of Ashford was like a ghost from the past, a relic of old New England with its shuttered storefronts and empty streets. Gabriel felt a familiar chill as he passed the dilapidated sign that marked the town's limits, its letters faded and barely legible, "Welcome to Ashford." He parked his car in front of the mansion, a crumbling relic that loomed ominously against the twilight sky. The house, once grand, now stood in decay. Ivy crawled up its weathered walls, and several windows were boarded up. As Gabriel approached, the air grew colder, and he shivered despite his heavy coat. He knocked on the massive oak door, its sound echoing through the silent night. A moment later, it creaked open to reveal John, a stern-faced man with worry etched deep into his features. Behind him stood Lisa, her eyes red and swollen from sleepless nights. "Father Gabriel," John greeted him with a stiff nod. "Thank you for coming. Please, come in." Gabriel stepped inside, and the oppressive atmosphere hit him immediately. The air was thick, almost suffocating, and carried an unmistakable sense of dread. He followed John and Lisa through the dimly lit hallway, the floorboards creaking under their weight. "She's upstairs," Lisa said, her voice trembling. "It's been getting worse." They led him to a narrow staircase that groaned with each step. As they climbed, Gabriel glanced at the family photos lining the walls. Emily, once a bright and smiling girl, now looked pale and gaunt in recent pictures, her eyes haunted by something unseen. At the top of the stairs, they stopped in front of a closed door. John hesitated before opening it. "We don't know what else to do. Please, help her." Gabriel stepped into the room, his eyes adjusting to the dim light. Emily lay on the bed, her small frame dwarfed by the heavy blankets. She tossed and turned, muttering in a language Gabriel couldn't understand. Her once bright eyes were now dark and hollow. "Emily," he called gently, but her head snapped towards him with unnatural speed. Her eyes locked onto his, and for a moment, Gabriel felt a presence far older and more malevolent staring back at him. He moved closer, reaching for his crucifix. The air around him grew colder, and shadows seemed to stretch and twist unnaturally. Gabriel knew this wasn't just a troubled girl. This was something far more sinister. He could feel the demon's presence, its hatred palpable. As he began to pray, the room seemed to pulse with a dark energy. Emily's voice, no longer her own, growled, "You think you can save her, priest?" Gabriel's resolve hardened. "I will save her," he replied, his voice steady. "In the name of God, I will." The battle had begun. Chapter 2. The First Encounter. Father Gabriel's prayer echoed in the small room, but the oppressive darkness seemed to absorb his words. Emily's body convulsed violently, her limbs thrashing against the restraints. Gabriel could feel the malevolent presence fighting back, its rage tangible. He tightened his grip on the crucifix, his voice unwavering as he continued to recite the ancient rites. Hours later, Emily finally fell into a fitful sleep, the room falling silent except for her labored breathing. Gabriel wiped the sweat from his brow, his heart heavy. He glanced at John and Lisa, standing in the doorway, their faces etched with fear and desperation. "She's resting now," Gabriel said, his voice wary. "But this is far from over." John's jaw clenched. "What are you saying, Father?" "Is she?" Gabriel nodded solemnly. "The demon's hold on her is strong. This will not be easy. Lisa stifled a sob, clutching John's arm. Please, save our daughter. As they left Emily's room, Gabriel's mind wandered to his past. He had been a young priest, full of zeal and confidence, when he first faced a demonic possession. But his inexperience had led to tragedy. The memory of that failed exorcism haunted him, still the young boy who died because Gabriel hadn't been strong enough, skilled enough to save him. The boy's anguished eyes appeared in his nightmares, a constant reminder of his failure. Gabriel shook off the memories and followed John and Lisa down the creaking staircase. I need to explore the house, he said. There might be clues about why this is happening. John hesitated. What good will that do? Isn't it just in her? Demons latch onto places of power, of history, Gabriel explained. There might be something here that we can use against it. Reluctantly, John led Gabriel to the mansion's dimly lit study. Dust-covered books lined the shelves, and an old diary lay open on the desk. Gabriel flipped through the pages, finding entries that spoke of strange occurrences and dark rituals performed by the mansion's original owner, a man obsessed with the occult. As Gabriel read, a loud crash came from upstairs, followed by Emily's terrified screams. He rushed back to her room, finding her levitating above the bed, eyes rolled back in her head. Her voice, distorted and otherworldly, spewed blasphemies and threats. The air crackled with dark energy. Gabriel began to pray, but John grabbed his arm. What's happening to her? This is madness. John, let me do my job, Gabriel snapped, his patience fraying. You need to trust me. John's face twisted with anger and fear. Trust you? My daughter is suffering, and all you do is pray. How do we know this isn't making things worse? Gabriel met John's gaze, his own eyes filled with a steely determination. Because I've seen what happens when no one prays. If you want to save her, you need to believe. The tension between them was palpable, but John stepped back, allowing Gabriel to continue. As the priest resumed his prayers, the shadows in the room seemed to retreat, if only slightly. The battle for Emily's soul had only just begun, and Gabriel knew they were in for a long, harrowing fight. Chapter 3: Unearthing the Past. Father Gabriel spent the rest of the night by Emily's bedside, his prayers a constant murmur against the oppressive silence. As dawn broke, casting eerie shadows through the cracked windows, Gabriel knew he needed answers. He needed to understand the evil that gripped this place if he was to save Emily. After a brief, restless sleep, Gabriel made his way to the study. The diary he had found the previous night lay open, taunting him with its cryptic entries. He delved deeper into its pages, discovering the mansion had a dark history. Built on land cursed by a vengeful spirit from the Salem witch trials, the house had been a site of suffering and death. The original owner, Nathaniel Hawthorne, had been obsessed with the occult. Accused of witchcraft, he was executed in the very town square where Gabriel had passed upon his arrival. The diary detailed Nathaniel's final days, his curses laid upon those who wronged him, and his desperate attempts to summon dark forces for revenge. Gabriel's fingers traced the ink-stained pages, feeling the weight of centuries-old malevolence. A sudden chill swept through the room, and he looked up to see shadowy figures darting at the edge of his vision. The air crackled with a sinister energy. Determined to uncover more, Gabriel ventured into the mansion's basement. The stairs creaked under his weight, and the darkness seemed to close in around him. He found a hidden door behind a rotting bookshelf, its handle cold and unyielding. With a grunt, he forced it open, revealing a small chamber lined with ancient symbols and relics. At the center of the room lay a stone altar, stained with old blood. Gabriel's heart pounded as he examined the markings, recognizing them from the diary. This was where Nathaniel had performed his final, desperate ritual. A sense of dread settled over Gabriel, but also a fierce resolve. Returning upstairs, Gabriel found Emily awake, her eyes wide with fear. She clung to her stuffed rabbit, her small body trembling. "Father Gabriel," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I see them. They come at night." Gabriel knelt beside her, taking her hand gently. "Who comes, Emily?" "The shadows," she replied, tears streaming down her face. "They whisper to me, say they want to take me away." Gabriel's grip tightened. "They won't take you, Emily. I promise you that." As the day wore on, strange occurrences escalated. Unexplained noises echoed through the hallways, footsteps where no one walked, doors creaking open on their own. Objects moved seemingly of their own volition, and dark shapes flitted just out of sight. The oppressive atmosphere grew heavier, and the mansion seemed to pulse with a life of its own. Despite the mounting terror, Gabriel spent more time with Emily, learning about her nightmares and fears. She spoke of dark figures and haunting voices, of a constant feeling of being watched. Gabriel shared stories of his own childhood fears, creating a bond of trust between them. He vowed to protect her, his determination solidifying into an unbreakable resolve. As night fell once more, Gabriel knew that the battle was far from over. The evil in this house had deep roots, and it would take everything he had to free Emily from its grasp. The mansion's dark past loomed over them, but Gabriel's faith and resolve burned brighter than ever. Chapter 4. The First Attempt. Father Gabriel stood at the foot of Emily's bed, his heart pounding in his chest. The tools for the exorcism lay meticulously arranged on the small table beside him: a vial of holy water, a crucifix, and his well-worn Bible. He took a deep breath, reciting prayers under his breath, trying to steady his nerves. He knew this was his only chance to save Emily, and failure was not an option. Lisa and John stood at the doorway, their faces etched with fear and desperation. Gabriel could see the doubt in John's eyes, a skepticism that had only grown since Gabriel's arrival. But there was no time for second-guessing. Gabriel made the sign of the cross over Emily, her body writhing in the bed, eyes rolling back in her head. "In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti," Gabriel began, his voice firm. As he recited the ancient rites, the temperature in the room seemed to drop, and a palpable darkness descended. Emily's convulsions grew more violent, and her voice erupted into guttural, inhuman growls. Gabriel sprinkled holy water on her, the droplets hissing as they touched her skin. The demon within her shrieked, and Emily's body arched off the bed, suspended by an unseen force. Gabriel pressed on, his prayers becoming more urgent, more desperate. But the demon fought back with a fury Gabriel had never encountered before. Suddenly, Emily's eyes snapped open, glowing with an unnatural light. Her mouth twisted into a sinister grin, and a voice that was not her own spoke. "You think you can save her, priest? You failed before, and you will fail again." Gabriel's heart sank. The demon knew about his past, about the boy he had failed to save. The memory of that exorcism, of the young boy's death, flooded back, threatening to overwhelm him. His grip on the crucifix tightened, but his resolve wavered. Emily's body contorted violently, and Gabriel was thrown across the room by an invisible force. He crashed into the wall, the breath knocked out of him. Gasping for air, he struggled to his feet, but his vision swam, and he felt a sharp pain in his side. John rushed to his daughter's side, his face twisted with anger. "What are you doing?" "You're killing her," he shouted, his voice cracking with desperation. Gabriel staggered towards the bed, but his legs gave out, and he fell to his knees. "John, you have to trust me," he rasped. but the look in John's eyes told him it was too late. The bond of trust had been shattered. Emily's condition worsened, her screams piercing the heavy silence of the mansion. Gabriel felt a crushing sense of failure and guilt. He had come here to save her, but he had only made things worse. The demon's taunts echoed in his mind, a relentless reminder of his past and his fears. As he lay on the floor, the cold seeping into his bones, Gabriel knew he couldn't give up. The stakes were higher than ever. He had to find a way to save Emily, to redeem himself. With a renewed sense of determination, he vowed to face the darkness again, no matter the cost. The battle for Emily's soul was far from over. Chapter 5: Descent into Madness. The mansion seemed to breathe with malevolent life as night fell again, its oppressive presence seeping into every corner. Gabriel sat in a chair by Emily's bed, fighting the exhaustion that threatened to overtake him. He hadn't slept since the failed exorcism, haunted by the demon's taunts and the echoes of his past failures. As Gabriel closed his eyes for a moment, the line between reality and nightmare began to blur. He saw the boy from his past exorcism, his lifeless eyes staring accusingly. The room twisted around him, the walls melting and reforming into grotesque shapes. He heard whispers, saw shadows crawling towards him. Snapping his eyes open, Gabriel forced himself to focus, but the visions continued to haunt him, making him question his sanity. Meanwhile, the family was unraveling under the strain. Lisa's faith, once a pillar of strength, began to crumble. She clung to Gabriel, tears streaming down her face. "Father, what if? What if we can't save her?" she whispered, her voice trembling. John, however, had taken a different path. His skepticism had turned into anger, and he paced the halls like a caged animal. "This is madness," he muttered, his eyes wild. "We're relying on a failed priest to save our daughter. This is hopeless." The tension in the house was palpable. Each member of the family pushed to their breaking point. And the demon, sensing their vulnerability, escalated its attacks. Doors slammed shut with deafening force. Unseen hands yanked at Gabriel's robe, and Emily's screams filled the mansion, each one more harrowing than the last. One night, as Gabriel knelt in prayer, a violent force hurled him across the room. His head struck the floor, and darkness engulfed him. When he awoke, he found himself in the attic, a place he had never ventured. The room was filled with dust and cobwebs, and in the corner, he spotted an old leather-bound journal. His hands shaking, Gabriel opened the journal. Pages were filled with frantic, desperate scrawls notes from Nathaniel Hawthorne himself. The final entries detailed a ritual, one that could potentially banish the demon for good. But the ritual was risky, untested, and required a great sacrifice. Gabriel's mind raced as he read the final lines. The instructions were clear, but the dangers were immense. The ritual called for the ultimate test of faith and strength, something Gabriel wasn't sure he possessed anymore. But it was their only hope. He descended the attic stairs, clutching the journal like a lifeline. The mansion's darkness seemed to pulse with anticipation, as if it knew what he had discovered. Gabriel could feel the weight of his responsibility bearing down on him, but he also felt a flicker of hope. In the flickering candlelight of the study, Gabriel gathered the family. "I found something," he said, his voice steady but laced with urgency. "A ritual that might save Emily. It's dangerous, but it's our best chance." Lisa looked at him with wide, tear-filled eyes, while John's face hardened with determination. Despite their fears and doubts, they knew they had to trust Gabriel. The battle for Emily's soul was reaching its climax, and there was no turning back. As the shadows deepened around them, Gabriel prepared for the most perilous exorcism of his life, knowing that failure was not an option. The final confrontation with the demon loomed ahead, a test of faith, courage, and the very essence of their souls. Chapter 6: The Darkest Hour. The atmosphere in the mansion grew heavier with each passing hour, the oppressive darkness pressing down on everyone within its walls. Gabriel knew the time had come for the final confrontation. He spent the early morning hours in the study, gathering the items he would need for the final exorcism. The ritual detailed in Nathaniel Hawthorne's journal was complex and dangerous, but it was their last hope. Gabriel meticulously packed the holy water, blessed candles, and relics into a small bag. He recited prayers, trying to fortify his spirit for the battle ahead. Every creak of the floorboards, every gust of wind that rattled the windows seemed to mock his efforts, a constant reminder of the malevolent force lurking in the house. Downstairs, tension simmered to a boiling point. John, his face etched with lines of worry and anger, cornered Gabriel in the hallway. "This has to end now. I've had enough of your rituals and prayers. You're not helping my daughter. You're making things worse." Gabriel met John's gaze, his own eyes weary but resolute. "John, I understand your frustration, but this is the only way. We're dealing with something beyond the natural. You've seen it yourself." John's fists clenched, but before he could respond, a chilling laugh echoed through the house. The lights flickered, and a shadowy figure materialized at the end of the hallway, its form shifting and twisting in the dim light. The demon's presence was unmistakable, and its eyes gleamed with malicious glee. John's face paled, the anger replaced by sheer terror. What is that?" "It's real, John. And it wants to destroy us all," Gabriel said, his voice steady. "You need to trust me. We can save Emily, but I need your support." John nodded slowly, the fear in his eyes now mixed with a desperate hope. "Do whatever you need to do, Father. Just save my daughter." With John's reluctant trust, Gabriel turned his attention back to Emily. He found her in her room, her small frame curled up on the bed. She looked up as he entered, her eyes filled with a haunting mixture of fear and hope. "Father Gabriel," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Will you really save me?" Gabriel knelt beside her, taking her hand gently. "Emily, I promise I will do everything in my power to save you. I'm sorry for my past failures, but I won't fail you. You have to believe in me, just as I believe in you." Tears filled Emily's eyes as she nodded. "I trust you, Father." The emotional weight of the moment hung heavy in the air as Gabriel left her room, steeling himself for the final preparations. The mansion seemed to pulse with dark energy, the shadows lengthening and deepening as night fell. Gabriel placed the blessed candles around the room, creating a sacred circle. He positioned the holy relics at strategic points, following the instructions from Hawthorne's journal. Each step was meticulous, every detail critical for the ritual's success. The oppressive atmosphere grew thicker, the air heavy with anticipation. As Gabriel lit the final candle, he whispered a prayer, his voice unwavering. The stage was set for the ultimate battle between light and darkness. The mansion, now a battlefield, seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the clash that would decide Emily's fate. Gabriel took a deep breath, feeling the weight of his responsibility. This was it, the moment of truth. With renewed determination, he stepped into the circle, ready to face the demon and reclaim Emily's soul from its grasp. Chapter 7: The Final Exorcism. The sacred circle was set, candles casting a flickering light that danced against the oppressive darkness. Gabriel stood at the center, holding the ancient journal in one hand and a crucifix in the other. The air was thick with tension and the palpable presence of the malevolent entity lurking in the shadows. The final exorcism was about to begin. Spiritus Sancti Exorcizo Te, Gabriel began, his voice strong and unwavering. The ancient Latin words echoed through the room, invoking higher powers to aid in the battle. As he continued the incantation, a chill swept through the mansion, and the candles flickered violently. Emily's body convulsed on the bed, her eyes rolling back as the demon within her fought against Gabriel's words. The room seemed to vibrate with dark energy, and shadows twisted unnaturally along the walls. The demon's voice, a low and guttural growl, emerged from Emily's lips, mocking Gabriel's efforts. "You cannot save her, priest," the demon hissed. "She belongs to me." Gabriel tightened his grip on the crucifix, his resolve hardening. "In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti, I command you to leave this child." The demon's laughter filled the room, a sound that sent chills down Gabriel's spine. Suddenly, Emily's body lifted off the bed, suspended in midair. Her limbs twisted grotesquely, and her eyes glowed with a malevolent light. Gabriel continued his prayers, but the demon struck back with terrifying force. The temperature plummeted, and an icy wind whipped through the room. Objects flew off the shelves, crashing against the walls. Gabriel felt a crushing pressure on his chest, as if unseen hands were squeezing the life out of him. He struggled to breathe, but he refused to relent. In the midst of the chaos, Gabriel noticed something strange, an ancient symbol etched into the floor beneath Emily's bed. It was the same symbol from Hawthorne's journal, one that represented a powerful binding spell. Gabriel's mind raced as he realized the truth. Emily was not just possessed, she was bound to the demon by a dark ritual performed centuries ago. Understanding dawned on Gabriel, a shocking revelation that changed everything. Emily wasn't merely a victim, she was the key to the demon's power. To break the possession, Gabriel needed to sever the bond that tied Emily to the demon. With newfound determination, Gabriel shifted his focus. He recited the words from the journal, calling upon ancient powers to break the binding spell. The demon's screams grew louder, its hold on Emily weakening as Gabriel's words pierced through the darkness. Per potestatem sanctum liberare hans animam, Gabriel shouted, his voice filled with authority. He placed the crucifix against Emily's forehead, and the symbol on the floor began to glow with a blinding light. The demon lashed out in a final, desperate attempt to maintain its hold. Gabriel felt a surge of pain, visions of his past failures flooding his mind. The young boy he had failed to save, the lives lost because of his mistakes, it all threatened to overwhelm him. But Gabriel pushed through the pain, focusing on Emily. "You are stronger than this, Emily," he whispered, his voice filled with compassion. "Fight it. You can break free." Emily's eyes flickered, a glimmer of her true self, shining through the demonic haze. With a final, desperate scream, the demon's hold shattered. Emily collapsed onto the bed, her body trembling but free from the malevolent presence. The room fell silent, the oppressive darkness lifting as light filled the space. Gabriel dropped to his knees, exhausted but victorious. He had done it. He had saved her. Emily opened her eyes, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you, Father," she whispered, her voice weak but grateful. Gabriel smiled, the weight of his past failures lifted from his shoulders. "You saved yourself, Emily. Your strength broke the demon's hold." As dawn broke over the mansion, the first light of day shining through the windows, Gabriel knew that this battle had been more than just a fight against darkness. It was a redemption, a chance to heal old wounds and move forward with renewed faith. He had faced his demons, both literal and figurative, and emerged victorious. Chapter 8: Aftermath and Redemption. The first light of dawn filtered through the shattered windows, casting long shadows across the room. Gabriel sat slumped on the floor, his breath coming in ragged gasps. The battle had taken everything from him, but he had prevailed. Emily lay on the bed, her chest rising and falling with the steady rhythm of sleep, free from the demon's grip. The mansion bore the scars of the fierce struggle. Furniture lay in splinters, the walls were cracked and stained with blood, and the air still hummed with residual energy. Gabriel pushed himself to his feet, his body aching from the physical and spiritual toll of the exorcism. He turned to find John and Lisa standing in the doorway, their faces pale but relieved. "Is it over?" John asked, his voice trembling. Gabriel nodded, a weary but triumphant smile tugging at his lips. "Yes, it's over. Emily is free." Lisa rushed to her daughter's side, tears streaming down her face. She gently brushed the hair from Emily's forehead, her touch tender and loving. John moved to stand beside Gabriel, his eyes filled with gratitude and a newfound respect. "Father, I don't know how to thank you," John said, his voice choked with emotion. "I doubted you, and I'm sorry for that. You saved our daughter." Gabriel placed a reassuring hand on John's shoulder. "There's no need for apologies, John. We were all fighting for Emily. That's what matters." As the morning light grew stronger, illuminating the devastation around them, Gabriel felt a sense of peace wash over him. The demon was gone, and Emily was safe. He had redeemed himself for his past failures, finding a measure of peace he hadn't known in years. In the days that followed, the mansion was left in ruins, a testament to the fierce battle that had taken place. John and Lisa, now reconciled with Gabriel, moved Emily to a safer, more comforting environment where she could heal from her ordeal. The family's bond, strained by fear and doubt, was mending, strengthened by their shared experience. Months passed, and the mansion stood empty, its dark history whispering through the cracks and crevices. Rumors began to circulate in the nearby town of ghostly activities within the abandoned walls, whispers of shadowy figures, flickering lights, and eerie sounds that sent chills down the spines of those who dared venture close. Gabriel continued his work, traveling from town to town, his faith renewed and his resolve stronger than ever. Each exorcism, each encounter with the supernatural, was a chance for him to help others and to continue his path of redemption. He carried with him the memory of Emily and the battle they had fought together, a constant reminder of the strength that lay in faith and determination. One evening, as Gabriel prepared for another exorcism in a small rural church, he received a letter from Lisa. Emily was doing well, recovering from her trauma and finding joy in the simple things once more. Lisa's words were filled with gratitude and hope, a testament to the lasting impact of Gabriel's efforts. Yet, as Gabriel folded the letter and placed it in his coat pocket, a chill ran down his spine. He couldn't shake the feeling that something lingered from that final battle, an echo of the demon's presence. He dismissed it as residual fear, a remnant of the intense struggle he had endured. But that night, as Gabriel drifted off to sleep, he was jolted awake by a familiar, chilling whisper. "I'm not finished yet, priest." Gabriel's heart pounded in his chest as he sat up, scanning the dark corners of his room. The voice was gone, leaving only silence in its wake. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for whatever lay ahead. The battle against darkness was never truly over, but Gabriel was ready. He had faced his demons and emerged stronger, and he would continue to fight, no matter what came next. As the moon cast its pale light through the window, Gabriel closed his eyes, his resolve unbroken. The war against evil was a constant, never-ending struggle, but he was prepared to face it, with faith as his shield and determination as his sword. The dawn's light brought a semblance of peace to the shattered mansion. Emily lay in her bed, free from the demon's grip, her breath steady and calm. Gabriel, exhausted but triumphant, felt a deep sense of relief. John and Lisa embraced him, their gratitude immeasurable. "It's over," Gabriel assured them. "Emily is safe now." The family moved to a new home, leaving the haunted mansion behind. Months later, the once cursed house stood abandoned, whispers of its dark past lingering in the town's folklore. Gabriel, now more resolved and confident, continued his mission, helping those tormented by evil. One quiet evening, as Gabriel read a letter from Lisa describing Emily's recovery, he felt a sudden chill. A familiar, chilling whisper echoed in his mind. Gabriel's heart pounded, but he steadied himself. The battle against darkness was unending, but he was ready. He had faced his demons before, and would continue to do so, his faith unwavering. As the moonlight cast its glow, Gabriel closed his eyes, prepared for whatever lay ahead. The war against evil was never truly over, but he was more determined than ever to fight it, armed with faith and unyielding resolve.